this is kind of a fascinating collaboration to me because on paper, you wouldn't necessarily put you guys together. But when you hear you guys play and watch you guys play, because I've seen some footage now, it's like, oh yeah, this naturally works. But from the perspective of you guys are coming from kind of musically different worlds, first off, I'm curious, Troy, what was it about Rizz that you really locked into and said, wow, this guy is special?
Well, I got to go back to the backstory a little bit. It was about 5 years ago, before COVID and all. My son was having a surgery, and he was going to be down, so I made plans to come in for about 3 weeks and spend some time with him. And when I had gotten there, my son has like a tri-level condo,
Okay.
and on the bottom is the garage. And so I come in the side garage door, and there's an air mattress with some guy sleeping on it. Guess who? So there's yeah, right.
An
And
auspicious
so
start.
I'm like, yo, what's up? He goes, hey man, I'm K Rizz. He went by K Rizz. We dropped the K. It's just Rizz now, but we'll get to that. But I said, hey, how you doing? I walk in, and I go see my son, and we're visiting, and Troy had brought Rizz in to produce 5 songs, well, I think it was. And while I was there, he said, Dad, if you can help me out, I could use some drums on this stuff. And we got right to work. And I just jumped right in, and I was hearing the music. I was kind of new to everything. I didn't know anything about them.
Hmm.
And as we got through those 3 weeks, I'll just fast forward and, Cliff Notes version. We got through those 3 weeks. I basically said to him, I said, what are you doing with this kid? He said, I'm producing him. I said, there's no money in production, not enough. I said, let's get management on him. Problem is, we're not managers, but we'll figure that out.
Hmm.
So I talked to Rizz about it, and we decided that, yeah, we would continue to work together. I just told Troy, I said, this kid's a superstar. I said, I've been in this business long enough to know where there's something that's really special. It was very apparent to me. And
Hmm.
that's how, and so I talked to Rizz about it, and COVID happened, shut everything down. We kind of lost touch for a bit. And then 2 years ago, I just called him. I was in down at BMG, and in an Atmos mix, and the guy that was working in the studio, he heard a little bit of what I was doing. He goes, "Hey, that music's really huge, and I've just got done doing this band called Stick Figure. I produced their new record, or mixed it. I maybe mixed it. I don't know if he produced or mixed. I can't remember, but." Jeff Hutchkins, I think is his name. And
Okay.
at any rate, so it put Rizz back on my radar, and I just called him up. I said, what are you doing? And I'll let Rizz tell you from there, because I called you, Rizz, and what happened?
Yeah, I was basically there 4 days later, man. Told him booked that one-way ticket and came out and we started working. It was it was at a time where it was right for me to make that move, that leap of faith, so to speak. And yeah, we had already had that time that we got to spend together and kind of connect and get to know each other more on a personal level. I feel like, when you're making music, it can be kind of a spiritual experience, at least for how I like to make music and what I'm doing. There's different styles out there. I can just kind of get together and jam too, but for my personal stuff, for what I do, I like to write and create music that really has a deeper meaning and purpose to it. And so I got to relay that to him.
Mm.
This is really, for me, it's more of a spiritual kind of quest, kind of, that I'm trying to fulfill. For my sole purpose is kind of how I look at it. And so being able to translate that and having the right people around you to help you kind of fulfill that vision is so important.
Mm.
Um, and I'm very lucky enough to be in that position right now. I've kind of started out doing a lot of all this, really, started with me before I even got to Troy Jr. Was kind of more in the hip hop realm with my friends out of high school, and we had our hip hop group and passing out mixtapes and kind of started that way. And so yeah, it's always been kind of a lot of, once my friends moved away, I was a lot of by myself, in my studio, just working through this, kind of figuring out self-discovery. And you know, I found myself into kind of the reggae scene, I guess, you know. I didn't look at myself as a reggae artist. I still don't like to really label anything too much because it's art, you know,
Right.
and it's expression, you know. Why label that? You know, it's we're all so different and unique, and so um you know, I don't know. I kind of am more and more so leaning towards just kind of presenting it that way. It's like it's Rizz. You know, what
Yeah.
is it? It's Rizz.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Hi. You know, that kind of vibe, you know.
But what, because I mean, obviously, Troy has the rock pedigree, and he's worked with a lot of amazing people, but not, and not just his own band, but Whitford St. Holmes, some great work he did with them, and all these other different projects. But it again, all of a different nature than what you guys are presenting here. Um, what was it about him that convinced you, okay, even though this guy comes from a different sound, he gets what I'm trying to do and where I'm trying to go with this?
Troy.
Well, no, that
What
was for you.
convinced
That
you?
was for you. What convinced you that
Oh, I'm
Troy?
sorry.
No, I was
Well,
asking Rizz
Oh, okay. What convinced me
that.
for Troy?
Yeah,
Um, I apologize.
no
I
problem.
it's for me it was just kind of how it worked as far as just, you know, Troy as a person. You know, getting to be around him, it was totally a different world. I didn't know much about his background as far as the music that he was playing. And
Hmm.
at first it was funny. I was talking about this last night. I was like, man, at first, even when Troy was like, I want to put some drums on this, I was like, I'm good, man. I don't think it needs any drums, you know. I kind of like the style that it is. It's kind of like it was all kind of programmed beats and stuff. And I'm
Okay.
like, I like the songs. It could use some drums. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. Kind of like where it's at already. You
Hmm.
know, then I didn't really know because he does come from a different world. I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. You know, but from kind of this whole process for me was letting go and just kind of like trusting. And Troy told me, he's like, just trust me. Like, let me just trust me. If you don't like it, we have what we have. And that was really this whole project for me and for how he kind of presented it to me. Is like, if you just, you know, don't handcuff me and let me do what I feel this needs musically and on the drum side and just kind of as the producer, um, you know, uh, just trust me and we can always go back if you don't like it. And so
Hmm.
I remember just kind of being like, okay. And through that process, there was times where I didn't even know if I liked it. I was like, gosh, I don't even know. I mean, it's cool, and I know you're a great drummer, and I know that I should want to like this, but I also don't want to just lie to myself and say I like it just because you're, you know, you're Troy, you know, and having to really battle with that was kind of a lot, you know, for me.
Hmm.
I didn't want to be pretentious and just say, "Oh yeah, I got these guys on here, and it's just cool because they're somebody's." You know,
Hmm.
I
Right.
really had to. It really, for me as an artist, I was like, I really have to believe in the music. I really have to feel it, and to be honest, it was a process for me even to get to that. Sometimes I didn't know in the moment if I did or not. It was kind of in a gray area, like, well, it's so different and new. I don't even can't tell you I don't like it, but I can't tell you I love it. You know,
Hmm.
that's just me being fully transparent. And I
Yeah.
have to be as an artist, you know, for it to be that way. And so it's funny because now coming around, I'm like, when you take some time off and have a different set of ears, you're like, whoa, I really like that. That would have never done that. That's
Hmm.
so fucking cool. You're not a reggae drummer. You know, you're Troy. I don't need that thing. You know, we don't want to try to have you fit into this box. You just
Yeah.
be, it's going to create a different thing. And that's what this project has kind of done. And for him being, you know, on the rhythm side of things, it's created, you know, a unique thing that's not fully fitting into any specific area.
Right, right. Okay. And then the flip side of that, I'm curious how playing this music and finding your approach to it, Troy, influenced your drumming and maybe made you see drumming in a different light.
I quite honestly, nothing has changed for me. I never thought about anything I was doing. It's just music.
Mm.
And what is the song? How's the song speaking to me? You know, what I just always want to play the song, you know, whatever that is. And I'm not playing for myself, you know. So quite honestly, I mean, this was the first song I recorded, and we've got, you know, a dozen songs. And I remember with Jack, our engineer, Jack Campitelli, great engineer. And yes, he's the cousin to Jeff Campitelli, the drummer from Joe Satriani, if you're not familiar with him. But anyway, point being, Jack and I, we were getting some sounds that night. It was getting late. I had a big day. And I just said, hey, Jack, you know, let me just go and hit the drums a little bit. I went in and hit them, the toms, and I go, well, I'll probably dig into this tomorrow. I said, but just roll 30 seconds of it and let me just come in and play a minute and let me come in and hear what my drums sound like.
Mm-hmm.
So I did, and I did. I only did maybe a first chorus, come through it maybe, and I remember stopping, coming back in, and I go, man, that sounds pretty good. I go, hey, let me take a shot at it, man. Let me just throw something down that I can listen to tomorrow so I can get a feel for what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're listening to. I literally, that was the first take performance, full first take that I did. I did a little warm up. I did one take performance. I came back the next day. I listened to it, and I was like, I think I'm good, man. And I just left it knowing I could always change it, even right now, you know. And
Yeah,
I got a
yeah,
studio, I'm set up, go up, plug in and play, and 20 minutes later, I could have something different, you know.
right.
So it really was just, I didn't want to overthink what I was doing. And quite honestly, I've been really blessed. And I say this very humbly. That's how most of the record has went, you know, for me.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had to give thing a whole lot of thoughts. What started, and I was kind of, you know, I knew what I wanted to do with Rizz, and going back to, you know, what Rizz used to license these tracks. So he would have these songs, and I was like, where's this music coming from? What are you doing? And you know, he explained to me how that worked, and then because there wasn't any drums, I was putting drums on this licensed music he had,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then when we got to Nashville, I knew I wanted to redo everything and re-record everything from even what we did at my son's house. But I was much like Rizz. I was like, I can't beat what's there. It was that good. The
Mm-hmm.
stuff that was, it was already in a lane that was great.
Yeah.
Did it need me or what? No, not necessarily. But what was evident, it had to be re-recorded. And I definitely had a vision for what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I was much like, you know, like, yeah, I mean, it could have went either way. And like I said, Rizz, nothing to lose at all the game, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not, I mean, you know, I've been beat out by a drum machine before, and that's okay. And if it's
Mm-hmm.
appropriate, and even if that's just the call, because it's just the call we're making at that time, you know. And like I told Rizz when we started, I said, look, the bottom line is this is your record. You know, I'll take on the production side of it. I'll bring in a team and we'll figure this thing out. And that's what I've done. And I said, bottom line, man, you will have the last word on everything that we do.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
kind of what we do. He's very good. He's very good about that. He doesn't take the last word just to take it. You know, it might take him a minute, and he might come around, and you know, and sometimes for me to come around too, you know, I could be on his side of the fence too. And at that time, maybe I wasn't, you know. We went to Jamaica, and, you know, we learned a lot out there. So it's been a process, you know. We're
Yeah.
still finding ourselves through the
But that was one thing I wanted to ask about, because I did read about you guys going out to Jamaica to record, and I'm wondering what was the pull in going out there, especially with a guy who has his own recording studio.
Well, I'll let Rizz tell you the story. Our music director is John Salloway. I call him our secret weapon. And there's a city winery in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
So Rizz, go ahead. You can tell him what happened, and then I'll jump back in.
Yeah, John does some bookings over there. So John had basically couldn't make it. There's Stephen Marley concert coming into town, and John, you know, being a big fan as well and kind of knowing the music, he was like, Rizz, you got to go and you got to take Troy. You know, and because we love Stephen, just a wonderful producer and artist, and You know, and so I know I knew I wanted to. Troy hadn't seen this yet, so I was like, all right, this is a wonderful opportunity. So John gave us some tickets. We went down to City Winery, checked out the show. It was a wonderful time, and that's when Squidly came backstage. We were hanging with some friends of ours, just kind of hanging around after the show. And Squidly had come out and was introduced to Troy. And, you know, he was like big fan of the rock and roll drummer, you know, style. He said, "You got big drums, man. I love it." You know, he talked about his dad being you know, being involved in music. And being a big fan, and kind of they started to hit it off as being drummers because he's he was the drummer for Stephen Marley, and he did some stuff with Ziggy. I believe he did the World Tour '93 with Ziggy. So very long history himself within the culture and the music. And so you know, Troy's like, man, well, I'm working with this, you know, with my buddy Rizz here on an album that's kind of like, you know, that's reggae, man. And he's like, Rizz, rap, man, do your thing. And so I start freestyling and he starts beatboxing. And next thing you know, we're, you know, hitting it off and having a great time. And he's like, man, you guys, you know, you guys should come out to Jamaica. I'll take you to Bob Marley studio. We'll make some music. And I'm sitting there going like, Troy, make, you know, yeah, you know. But Troy's like, absolutely, we'll take you up on it. And we just stayed in touch. We started sending him some music, started getting him a couple clips of what we were working on. And he really was digging it. He's like, oh man, I loved it because he kept saying, Troy, massive drums, Troy. I love it. You know, he loved Troy's drumming. And
Mm.
that was really cool for me to even see because different worlds. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, how cool is this going to be when we got this drummer and this two, you know, these two drummers from different worlds coming together. And we got to do that in the studio. We did a live take of Don't Stop Trying that's on our YouTube channel. And
Yeah.
you'll have Troy on a conga and Squidly Cole on a conga with John playing guitar and me singing. And it was cool, man. It was a moment that I was like, what a cool thing, you know? Um, but that's kind of how we got introduced was just through that concert. And you know, we followed up with him and we stayed in contact and we went out there. I forgot, you know, 4 months later, we spent a week. We flew into Kingston, Jamaica. He took care of us, took us throughout the island, took us up all around. I mean, you couldn't have paid. It was a priceless trip. You know, we
Mm.
got the first, we were really in it. You know, we didn't go
Yeah.
to any resorts, you know, by any means. We were heart of Kingston, and you just go to the studio every day, and he showed us around and talked to us about the culture and everything, and showed us. He was like, you know, it was a priceless thing. You couldn't have paid for a better tour guide, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, it was really cool.
And one thing I'm curious about, especially with you know, because you mentioned the, you know, and I encourage people to check out the video you're talking about on the YouTube channel, and I'll link up to it because it's really cool and it presents the song in this kind of cool different light. But what fascinates me is, so when you sing, there's this effect you have when you sing like the words "don't" or "heart,"
Yeah.
where it's like this special effect. You're singing both kind of this low and high at the same time.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like some sort of studio trick with, you know, that the engineers pulled off. But then when you see other live performances you've done, you're still doing that. And I'm wondering, A, how do you pull it off? And B, is this something you pursued or did that just come out of you?
It's a fun story. It's taken a full circle moment, that whole thing. And even when I watched that it took until I watched that video, and I called Troy right away, and I'm like, dude, it's crazy how this happened because I finally saw it on from the outside in. When I was my first like thing was when I was fourth grade. My mom was the director of a play called The Wizard of Oz, and I
Okay.
was the Cowardly Lion. And I remember sitting in my parents' room going over my script, and I started singing "If I Were the King." And I'll never forget my dad was like, you know, no, no, no. Like, if you're gonna sing it, son, you know, you gotta sing it. You know, have you watched the movie? You gotta, if I were the king, you know, of the forest. And he was like, you really gotta own it, man. And so
Mm.
I'm like, Dad, that is so corny. That's so weird. And I remember just kind of like going to rehearsal the next day in class. My mom was like the teacher. It was like School of Rock, man. Like, it was funny because we were supposed to only spend a couple hours on this play, but my mom, being who she was and an actress and everything, and I mean, we spent most of the time in class doing The Wizard of Oz, and
Mm.
that was a killer time. And I remember sitting in a circle and I did it, and people fell out of their chairs, and the teacher was like, you have got to do that. That is that you owned it. You know,
Hmm.
so it speaks like, you got to own it. You really got to put it all in there. And so I ended up doing that and, earning the role of the A-team lion, and people loved it, um, and so full circle moment is when I did that, I noticed that I really kind of stepped into it. And it just kind of happened, I haven't really trained my voice in that thing or tried too hard. I now
Hmm.
consciously know, how it does. And I try to, still keep it in control. So it's not just, too much.
Yeah.
But I did notice it more in that video. I'm like, there it is, and it's the producer, one of the co-producers who I'm working with, Dave Brainerd, he calls it the Rizz Brado. Uh, he goes, give me that Rizz Brado, man. So, it's just kind of natural. It just kind of happens, and now I can kind of dial in with it, and it's something unique that I can bring.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, because it's like you have your own built-in hook
Yeah.
with stuff that you thing and your own signature sound all wrapped up in one. It's like people kill for something like that, and try and make it artificially, and then but when it comes out of you, it's like, wait, did I just hear that? And then I love that you have all these different live videos because it shows it's not a studio trick. It's this is your voice.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. And thanks for letting me share that story because, yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other thing you notice, when you watch these videos is and another kind of fun contradiction is you've got like visually a sense of style, like I've been lucky enough to see the video already and all this stuff, and you're dressed sharp in every situation, and it's like this bold colors, and but it's like bright and smiling and happy, um it's funny because just because I've seen Troy live a number of times, and basically what he looks like now is what he usually looks like on stage. There's a ball cap, there's a black t-shirt, and that's the world of rock. And so it's the contradiction between that. And I'm wondering, how much thought goes into that, and how much for you does what you're wearing, does that factor into performance and in factor how you really want to present this music?
Yeah. Well, thanks for calling me out too, because I just got out the shower because I was running late today.
Right.
So now I'm looking like the, with this average shirt, Troy's gonna be like, I was gonna tell you that, Rizz. Um, it's so fun, man. It is. I love that part of it, I love the show aspect. I love dressing up. I think it is a reflection of your personality, and you get to have fun with it, you know. Yeah, clothing tells a lot about your personality, and I feel I do have kind of a very colorful personality. I'm very bold. I like to have fun. Very enthusiastic with who, with my singing and my passion for what I do. And I think it's a reflection. You feel good, you look good, you feel good. Um, and there's definitely a lot of thought. There's definitely, when you see this music video coming out, there's a place downtown called Sam's Clothing, and I have a girl out down there that I love to work with, and she kind of helps, with some of these outfits that I pick. But I've always kind of had a knack for, since I have expensive taste, so that can hurt sometimes. But yeah, I've always seemed to kind of be drawn to the flashy stuff, but also keeping it classy. I don't want to just do it just to be, I have to still like it.
Yeah.
There's a different, I can't even tell you what that style is exactly. I just know, like, if you were to give me a clothing rack, I usually will, I could be like, ooh, I like that. And it's just these different kind of styles. I like some of the like you'll see in maybe the Today in Nashville. Like, I love that jacket, it's like
Hmm.
it just has this cool thing. It's got the orange and the purple, and it's got the flowers, and then there was like this shirt underneath that's like flowers and floral, and it reminded me of my couch in the 90s when my parents it was like this 90s style couch with the whole thing. So Being a 90s baby, it just kind of fits, you know, the retro or whatever that is. But
Yeah.
there's definitely lots of thought that go into it. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a pain and I overthink it and it starts to stress me out. And I'm like, you know, and sometimes I do question myself. I go, man, do I wear this? And I remember even on Today in Nashville, I'm like, own it, brother. This is you, man. Let's go have fun. And now looking back, I'm happy I stepped into that, you know, and own it. And but thank you for noticing.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other thing, because I watched the video and I also watched the Today in Nashville performance, and then you have some videos of a private show that you guys did. And it's interesting to watch you, because it's like you are in constant motion, and there's a rhythm to your motion, obviously, but it's also like you're almost kind of prowling the stage. And it's fascinating, if only because so far I've only seen you on these very limited stages.
Yeah.
And so I'm really curious what it'd be like once you get to a really open stage with, room to move. Have you always been that way, or is this something that again came throughout years of performing?
I got chills, Chris. I love it. That's like what I envision more so, you know, like when I'm in my living room and stuff, like I'll be jumping on the couches and I'm having this live show and I'm running over to this side and I'm like, give me a solo stereo. And then I'm coming back, jumping on the riser with Troy and I'm like, let's go, give it up for Troy Luccketta. I just like that to me is I want to fly on stage, you
Mm.
know, like I do feel limited on those little stages and I try to make it work. And like, yeah, it feels like there's not a stage big enough that I've got to get on yet, that I feel like I want to open up so much more and be able to move it, because it's just what I like to do. You know, I love to float and work the stage.
Yeah.
I can do it, you know, within the confines of whatever I have. I've done side, you know, you've seen the stages that I've done, but yeah, those I need it bigger, man. That's why the vision's big, because I want to be able to move.
Hmm.
I love that aspect. I feel like, you know, besides the music, I like to entertain and I want people to feel my energy and want to dance and move with me and I want to jump up and, you know, just do that thing. So yeah, I'm glad you noticed that too, man. You've been paying attention, Chris. I
Yeah.
love.
And then you mentioned Michael Sterto, who I've done some work with and is a great guy, and which brings up the fact that Troy, you put together this really kind of amazing collection of musicians, and again, all from a rock background. Michael worked with Lou Gramm. He's currently with the Guess Who. There's guys who have played with Leonard Skinner and such, who are all part of this. And again, very different background, but I mean, they all coalesce so wonderfully on this song. I'm wondering, Troy, what as kind of the organizer of this, how did you pitch this to them, and what, if any, direction did you get it to them in order to work with Rizz's material?
I had the demos from my sons that we did that are very good, by the way. We did some great work out there together. And when I was out with the Guess Who, I really liked Michael a lot. And I've always been a fan of Michael Devon, the bass player, who's now in the Dead Daisies. And so I knew I wanted to, I told Rizz, I said, Rizz, I'm in Nashville. I says, I can call a group of guys, these guys in Nashville. I said, we can have the record done next week and you'll love it. I said, that's how good these guys are here in Nashville. I says, but it might not be what we want. I says, if we're really going to try to do something for me, I knew it couldn't come from that place. No disrespect. Obviously, I have nothing but respect for what's happening in Nashville and the players, and I've been very humbled moving there.
Yeah.
But I know what a band is. I've been in a band for a long time. I know what creating a real, true, authentic sound and bringing a collective group of guys together. It doesn't mean it's going to work. But I had an idea and a vision, and so It started with John Salloway because I was out doing work with him. He's his own artist. If you're not familiar with John Salloway, you should look him up. I call him our secret weapon. But as I started to work and kind of bring these guys in one at a time, you know, I knew what it is they had to offer. And as I just kind of got them in and would encourage and try to get out of the way and let them find their way around. None of us play reggae music, which is the beauty of what we're doing. I mean, some people might, like Michael Devin has, he knows the history, he's a big fan of it. You know, like myself, you know, I mean, I've learned everything about it through Rizz, and now I'm a huge fan. I'm watching Marley stuff, I'm doing all this cool stuff and learning all these new things, you know, not trying to be a reggae drummer, just, you know, just find, you know, some stuff to add to the toolbox and be myself and find my way. But it was probably right when we got some of the bass tracks on. I mean, it was really apparent to me. We already had the two guitars. I remember listening and bringing it to Dave Brainerd. Like, oh, we have a co-producer that is involved. He hadn't been. Uh, he's not on this track and hadn't had a lot of work to do with this track, but he is a writer and a lot of the other stuff, and he's very a part of, and we kind of go back and forth. I'll send stuff to him, we'll send stuff to me, it'll come back to me, and we're just like, we're navigating, just finding ourselves. And he's a real strong guy in his world. But I remember sitting at his house playing Don't Stop Tryin', and all I had was Rizz's vocal. I always put Stereo on the left and John Salloway on the right, and I just had them panned, two guitars, no bass, just the drums and the vocal, and we sat and listened to it. And I just remember him looking at me going, "Oh my God, it's phenomenal." I go, "I know, it really is." And I knew that. And once we added, you know, we brought in Luis, you know, Luis.
Yeah, Espaillat.
Yeah, great. He came in and did some work for us. But I always, like I told him, I said, "Luis, I said, you have to understand, you know, unfortunately, I probably won't be keeping, you know, a lot of your stuff, you know, because I'm going to be replacing it. It's like placeholder stuff." So once I got Michael Devin in, it was clear to me that, you know, with where we were and what we were doing, that the sound was taken because he's got an edge. And then we brought in a steel player, a lap steel guy, Curry Smith Curry, I think his name. Wonderful guy in Nashville, played with everybody, done tons of stuff. Came in, we won 7, 8 songs or whatever. He just came and killed it all. Everything sounded great. And I was like, then to Rizz and I sat down with it a little bit later, and I go, "I'm just not sure this, you know, as great as it is, it's that Nashville again, you know. I mean, here it's killer, it's great, but is it the right thing?" And we made a decision that no, it wasn't. And at the time, we had this song that had the Skinner kind of a jam, Freebird jam, and Rizz and I were talking about it. And I had just gotten a phone call from Peter Keys, keyboard player from Skinner, and you know, we were talking about some other stuff. I go, "Man, I want to play you something." But what happened was I got a chance to play everybody something. They heard his voice and they all loved it. And that got piqued their interest, you know, coming back to your question. And then what happened was when Michael was headed over to the Daisies, he's like, "Hey, man," you know, he sat and talked to me that he knew he had to leave the Guess Who. And he goes, "Man, I don't want to lose the Rizz thing because I really love this Rizz project and what we're doing." I said, "Well," I said, "I'll tell you what, Michael," I said, "it's yours until you tell me it's not, you know." And it's his. Still there. He's there. He's out with the Daisies, and all of this will come full circle. I believe we'll all be together in time, doing a lot of shows and a lot of work. And meanwhile, we've got Luis, who is on the video that people haven't seen yet. You might have seen the video, the full length video. Have you seen it with
I did.
Rizz in the blue suit and that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, I got to see
That's
that.
Luis. That's Luis. So we're going to keep that mix for that. And we have a different radio mix with Devin and, you know, the band. But
Right. Also,
it's
Luis
just the whole
played on the Nashville show too.
Yes.
right. Yeah. So he's our guy too. So it's wonderful. So, you know, I don't want it to be some revolving door of just bringing any and everybody in. We're trying to be calculated and with some of the moves. And we can't have everybody at all times, so we realize that until things do come together. But the sound collectively has come together, and there is a Rizz and the Believerz, and the
Yeah.
Believerz have a sound to this record that has been.
Yeah.
You'll hear it when you hear the rest of the record.
Well, I mean, it's kind of an interesting story in that to me, it's okay. There's established guys like Troy who are bringing up this new singing songwriting sensation, and and he's Rizz is now being exposed to lots of different kinds of players and stuff like that. But at the same time, through all of this work, in a way, Rizz, you're allowing people like Troy or other people to see Troy and how uh um multi-talented he is, how he's not just straight 4/4 time rock drummer that everyone grew up watching him, which is great. And that because he's always been his rock drumming has always been amazing. And and we've talked about the stuff he did with Keith Emerson with the Three Fates project was just astounding. But I like that because of his work with you, you've also been able to show, or now showing the world, like he's got this great subtle touch and feel too. Like the private show you did where he's got the stripped down kit and he's just playing with these hot rods and various percussion, and it's just got this great feel. And so it's like this wonderful symbiotic relationship where you guys are showcasing each other, I would say.
And that's the coolest part about it. We just got back from Florida, and at one of the buddies' house, it just so happened at the end of the night, they were like, "Can you guys play?" And there was a guitar. Some guy goes, gets a Lowe's bucket with a wooden spoon out of the kitchen, and Troy made that freaking thing sing, man. It was so cool. And you got a mic? Yeah, went and grabbed a mic out of the garage. John plugged in, and we had a show with the Lowe's bucket, and like that stuff for us is like what's so much fun. But like I had told Troy, because it was evident to me, I was like, I've never got to see Troy in any other music besides the Guess Who when I went and saw him with those guys. So I never necessarily saw him on too big of a stage or huge kits, like I think he's used to.
Yeah.
Even seeing him on that level, and then seeing him being willing to come help, with this project and being like, yo, I'll hop in a car and we'll go play for whatever we have to. Let's just get this thing moving. And when we did one of the first places in we're going on tour in Florida, seeing him on this kit, I was like, man, even for the people that do know you, this is such a cool way to get to see you in a different light. And he
Mm-hmm.
kind of now comes up. We brought him a little bit more forward. And within that show, I said, Troy, you're like the lead singer on drums, bro. Like you are just as much of the star and that the whole band. That's why I like that, because everybody's is a star in their own, in their own light and gets that time.
Yeah.
And I was like, but man, really, even for me, just being a fan of you as a drummer, as a person, I love that you kind of get to come back. You kind of now get to step more into the light and show your dynamic feel and do something that's totally different. And you're like, when he does some of these jams, I'm like, wow, they're just so cool to see him on a smaller, tasty kit and what choices he wants to make and how he creates this feel out of kind of minimalistic stuff. One of our good buddies, Creative Percussion, has some awesome, percussion stuff that he set Troy up with. So he's got a popcorn snare drum that's got popcorn kernels in it that creates a dynamic sound that really is really awesome, and things that
Hmm.
create natural gates. And Troy's always constructing this mastercraft creative kit with all these different things that you wouldn't typically ever see him with.
Yeah.
So it's allowed his I think creativity to expand and now be able to play in a different way that he's used to. I've seen some of the pictures from him, and earlier in his career, and like one where he's laying down in front of the most massive drum kit I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
so, for most people that know him, know what he does with something like that. But for, bring, and we'll, as he said in, one of our last interviews, when it's time to go big, we know we can do it. It's, he can rock that. But
Yeah.
it's cool to see even on phases and stages on shows that we might want to strip it down, that he can now create a whole nother dynamic setup and bring in some different percussive things So it's definitely, it's really cool to get to see him in that light. And we definitely, we like to have fun and highlight each other in that.
Yeah. And then the other thing I just wanted to bring up also along these kind of similar lines, in addition to the interesting kind of, signature warble that you have going on in like the chorus of this song, in the verses, you go into a little bit more of a kind of hip hop rap kind of style. But as a result, the way you sing and the lyrics are very percussive. You're singing, in those points, it's beats, it's bounces, and so I'm wondering, does that, since you're so in tune with percussive elements of a song, does that make it easier for you and Troy to communicate, where you're going with things or what you want to hear or the ideas you have?
I think it does. I think naturally we're both just players, and we kind of just have a feel. Um, and I think I don't really, to be honest, Chris, I don't really think about it too much in that way. I've never really thought about it like that, or really have tried to think, we just kind of work, we just kind of do. And I think we just kind of make it work. I just know that I feel that more so maybe Troy probably is watching, is working with me, watching me go, and he's just so good at feeling that out as well and can react and almost more dictate where I'm going. But I
Mm-hmm.
just kind of go. I mean, I think it could be a beauty of it where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, man. I'm just having fun doing me. And I think Troy's more watching and being a little bit more calculated,
Right.
anticipating. I think, would that be true, Troy?
Yeah, that's true. I'm just, there's nothing pretentious about anything that we've ever done. We've just been kind of reacting to each other playing music. It's, we're just letting it dictate where we go. We have these really wild, cool jams. There's things I'm learning about Rizz that I didn't know. He's actually, what I saw in California was only the tip of the iceberg, man. I mean, I had no idea really how talented, crazy talented he is. I mean, it's so much more than where he comes from, and it's so much bigger than us. And because of the content and the purpose of the music, which music with purpose is what we choose to call it, because of the messaging behind everything that he sings. He does. You'll hear the rest of the record. It's everything country music is, with a wine and a truck and a bar. With the whole
Right.
that whole scene. But and, and he does that with his positive messaging in his songs, and it's like rewriting that same story, but it's constantly new and refreshed, and he just has a way of putting it out there. And then when I got him, with a couple writers here in Nashville, that just frickin' kicked the frickin' door wide open, man. There
Mm-hmm.
are no lanes with what we're doing. We will be, it's world music, and that's what's we've hired, you know, to radio. We've hired somebody on the reggae side of things,
Mm-hmm.
and we've also Jody Best with Best Promotions, and then David Avery. But Jody she's going to be more the AAA, the Americana, the rock, and the classic rock, and all of that. And when we get to top 40, which we hope to do, we have all of that music for this record. So it's very broad. It's not limited. It's just we're letting it flow from the spirit, and we're just letting it happen, as it is, and it's beautiful. It is a really wide record, and that's what I think I love most about it too, is the fact that we're not just stuck. It's not a reggae record. I
No.
mean, yeah, we've got half a dozen songs, and you're going to see a release that's just for that we're getting ready to do, which will be live, and that's an EP that we're going to knock out. But because that songs and that music is there, and that's his where he comes from and where he lives, but not anymore, because he's just kind of been born into this new spirit of just it's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
All right, cool. Well, that takes care of all my questions. Is there anything we didn't address that you guys want to talk about?
I would just say thanks
I'll
for
let
having
Riz tell you about the
me. Yeah, I
release
was
dates and all.
Yeah, I'll just say thanks for having us, man. And we
Oh,
really
my
appreciate
pleasure.
the time. Hope to connect maybe after the release or at some point after, whenever we got some more exciting things coming up. But April 12th, don't stop trying. Join the movement, we're here to have a good time and spread that love. And also we'll be coming out with a music video. We can't wait for you guys to see that as well. So yeah, man, just stay tuned. We really appreciate you. April 12th, we got the music video as well as the single coming out. Follow us on all of our platforms, Rizz The Believerz, and join the movement. Don't stop trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rizz The Believerz with a Z at the end of it, and we also will have the website out, which I believe is it
Love
loverizz.com.
Rizz. LOVERIZZ, loverizz.com.
That they'll be
Cool.
hitting too. So everything's getting ready to hit, and yeah, and
As I
we're
said
going to
last
get out
night,
and play a lot of music.
the world won't be the same after April 12th, baby.
All right.
Right. We're coming.
Very cool. Very cool. And it's been off camera because you can't see it, but I never talked to Troy without coffee present in some form. We always
Yes, he knows. Rizz knows that. So.
yeah,
Oh
you
yeah,
gotta
it's a
have
party. You
you
gotta
gotta
have
have
coffee.
coffee with Troy. There's yeah.
That's Troy's party, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Coffee and donuts.
Mm.